Taliban negotiators entered Kabul this morning seeking the surrender of Afghanistan's central government and looking to negotiate what they called a peaceful transfer of power. Insurgents have captured much of the northwest and southern Afghanistan. This comes less than 3 weeks before the United States and the NATO coalition were set to withdraw the last of their troops. There are now fears of a full militant takeover or another Afghan civil war. And here at home, Americans protested outside the White House Saturday. They are calling for more to be done to combat the swift Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. And yesterday, President Biden defended his decision to pull U.S. troops out of the country. He said long-term American presence there was not acceptable. The Pentagon said 3,000 troops were being deployed to the city by the end of the weekend to help the withdrawal of American personnel as news comes that the United States is planning on closing its embassy there. And this morning, helicopters could be seen taking off and landing near that U.S. embassy in the Afghan capital. Biden has authorized the deployment of an additional 1,000 troops to the area to help with those efforts. Joining me now is Chuck Todd, moderator of Meet the Press. Good morning, Chuck. Great to see you again. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
All right, I want to jump right into this, okay? It seems like these stunning headlines out of Afghanistan keep coming this morning. It's that Taliban negotiators are in Kabul trying to negotiate that peaceful surrender. Back here at home, I want to talk about what the reaction is like. There's a lot of pressure right now on President Biden. So at this point, does he have any options, and what are they?
Well, look, you could argue he has some options here, but the option he's sticking to is to finish this withdrawal. Look, he believed in getting out of Afghanistan when he was the vice president, and so this is not a new point of view for him. He believes that no matter when we left, it was probably going to end in some form. There's at best, you're leaving a civil war. I don't know if you can call this a civil war when one side is essentially routing the other at this point, but it's a decision that, he basically says President Trump tied his hands. And there is a lot of evidence to support that critique. I think there are some people who believe President Biden could have at least delayed the withdrawal a few months, could have bought more time to create a more orderly withdrawal. And I think that's where we're going to have some tough questions. I think members of Congress can have tough questions is why was this so chaotic? What did we spend $83 billion on to train the Afghan troops if they simply, the second we say we're going to walk away, I mean, they have folded before we left. It was a concern that they could fold after we left, but before we left, they have folded. So I think some questions to the Pentagon of maybe they never believed that there was ever going to be a full withdrawal. Perhaps they thought they were going to convince President Biden, which they made one last effort to do, to keep some contingency force there. But whatever happens, if Afghanistan becomes a safe haven for al-Qaeda and it becomes a stronger organization that targets Western and American interests again, it's a decision that will haunt this president for years.
And something so interesting, all week the White House has maintained this stance that they weren't caught off guard, they weren't surprised, but they seem pretty surprised. You're going to have Secretary Anthony Blinken on the show with you today. What are you expecting to hear from him, especially after the headlines coming out this morning?
Well, it's my understanding we're probably going to hear him officially confirm that we're going to close the American embassy, and we may close it as soon as Monday. Right now, we sent the troops over there to secure the airport because it's the only way in or out. Richard Engel is already in Kabul for us, and he says you can, basically there's helicopters moving every minute, if you will, from the embassy to the airport to start evacuating people out. That's the near term. I think the question is, what is our plan for security in the medium and long term? And is this, are we setting ourselves up for what we saw when we withdrew from Iraq, which was suddenly out of nowhere, ISIS had this huge propaganda tool, and it served to even inspire homegrown terrorists in this country. How do we prevent Afghanistan from becoming this propaganda tool, particularly on the 20th anniversary of 9/11? So I think there are a lot of challenges ahead for this administration.
Definitely a very interesting international situation unfolding. Chuck, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Madison.
And Meet the Press is going to air today at 10 o'clock, right after Weekend Morning here on 11 Alive.